I am proud to create him Prince of Wales, Tywysog Cymru, the country whose title I've been so greatly privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty.
The lights inside the estate office were dimmed before anyone arrived. Phones stayed at the door. The aides who normally filled the corridor were told to wait 2 floors down. Something was about to be decided that nobody wanted, recorded, repeated, or rushed. According to insiders close to the household, what unfolded that morning would quietly reshape the financial future of 2 princely households, and only one of them would walk away protected. Before we go further into how this decision came together, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Reports suggest Charles arrived early, alone, and unusually still. He didn't open the folder right away. He let it sit there, closed, as though delaying the moment kept the consequences from becoming real. The Sussex Household Fund, a pool of family-linked finances that had, for years, quietly supported Harry and Meghan's side of royal life, sat at the center of that folder. Sources indicate the king no longer viewed it as a connection worth preserving. He viewed it as exposure. An informal family financial review simply means relatives and advisors gathering to discuss money, property, and who controls what going forward. And this one had been scheduled with almost no paper trail. Allegedly, Charles had already made up his mind before the meeting even started. The plan, according to those familiar with the discussion, was simple and brutal. Shift the funding stream away from the Sussex household and toward Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis instead. William's reaction, sources say, wasn't triumphant. It was heavy. Insiders claim the future king understood exactly why his children were being placed at the center, George representing the unbroken line, Charlotte representing resilience, Louis representing the innocence everyone in the family wanted shielded from public scrutiny. But understanding the reasoning didn't make it easier to sit with. William reportedly knew what this meant for his younger brother. Harry's position within the family hadn't just been quietly adjusted, it had been recalculated, and not in his favor. William, according to those present, kept his composure. Whether he felt relief or guilt underneath that composure is something only he could say. What seems clear, allegedly, is that protection for his own children arrived bundled with consequences for someone he once stood beside as best man. Charles is said to have lifted a single sealed page and read 2 words aloud: long-term security. The phrase sounded procedural. It landed like a sentence being passed. Long-term security, as one insider explained it, was the internal justification for moving money toward the next generation before any future conflict could threaten it. Even Charles reportedly understood how cold that explanation would sound to anyone outside the room. Still, he allegedly signed, citing a clause that permitted redirection under what the document called extraordinary circumstances. No smile, no hesitation, visible to the small group watching, just a pen set down slowly, as if something else had been set down with it. What struck observers first wasn't the money, it was who had been allowed to witness it. Camilla had reportedly been present, William had been there too. And according to one source, a senior financial advisor to the estate watched Charles sign without so much as a pause. Once word of who sat in that room spread quietly through the household, the story stopped sounding like paperwork. It started sounding like a verdict on the entire family. At the heart of it were 3 children who never asked to symbolize the monarchy's survival. George, Charlotte, and Louis weren't in that room, yet allegedly their names carried more weight than anyone who actually was. Charles reportedly looked at William and understood this wasn't simply about redistributing funds, it was about declaring, in writing, who the family trusted to carry its future. William is said to have felt that weight before the ink even touched the page. He reportedly knew exactly why his children mattered in this equation, not because they were famous, but because they represented the direct continuation of the crown. The crown, in this context, refers to the institutional role and authority passed down through the royal line. That meant their schooling, their safety, their public exposure suddenly carried implications far beyond ordinary childhood. Charles had once treated the Sussex Fund differently, as a bridge. Sources suggest meant to keep Harry's family tethered to the institution, even after the distance, the interviews, the very public airing of grievances. A trust fund, simply put, is money set aside under specific rules for specific people. This one had once carried an unspoken message: there's still a place for you. Allegedly, that message had now been withdrawn, and Charles reportedly knew exactly how that withdrawal would feel on the receiving end. Catherine, according to those close to her, noticed the strain in William before the meeting even began. She's said to have spoken quietly with him beforehand, not because he needed reassurance, but because he understood the cost of what was coming better than anyone else in the room. Protecting George, Charlotte, and Lewis meant accepting a decision that would, inevitably, make Harry feel pushed further from the center. Catherine reportedly carried that contradiction with him, silently, the way partners sometimes carry the weight of decisions they didn't personally make. Charles allegedly asked for the children's names to be read aloud before signing. George, Charlotte, Lewis. Each name, sources say, shifted something in the room. What stood out to Camilla, according to insiders, was what wasn't said. Nobody asked for Harry's name to be spoken once the redirection clause was confirmed. She reportedly noticed the silence immediately, sensing it had become part of the decision itself, almost a decision within the decision. Camilla didn't interrupt, according to those present. She's said to have simply watched Charles hold the pen, watched William lower his gaze, watched the family quietly choose protection over reconciliation. The money, in the end, may have mattered less than what the money represented. This wasn't simply support moving from one branch to another. This was, allegedly, the monarchy declaring which future it believed in. But none of this happened in a single morning. The shift had reportedly been building for months, tracing back to one dinner nobody inside the palace has ever spoken about publicly. Sources describe an evening that began with polite formality and ended in a silence so heavy it stayed lodged in the walls long after everyone left. No statement followed. No confirmation was ever issued. But according to insiders, that night was the moment something between Charles and Harry changed permanently. Harry had reportedly arrived that evening pushing for one thing: a guarantee. He wanted, allegedly, written financial protection for his household, the kind that didn't depend on palace approval for every decision. That single phrase, outside palace control, is said to have shifted the entire tone of the conversation. Palace control, in practical terms, refers to the internal approval system the family uses to govern money, security arrangements, and public conduct. Harry reportedly wanted his support structure removed from that system entirely. According to those familiar with the exchange, Charles felt the contradiction immediately, a son asking for continued support while simultaneously asking to step outside the family's authority. Harry reportedly felt cornered by the response. Charles reportedly felt wounded by the request. Neither man, sources say, said what was actually underneath either feeling. William, according to insiders, responded carefully but didn't soften his position. He's said to have told Harry the monarchy couldn't keep funding instability, while George, Charlotte, and Louis carried the long-term weight of continuity. Harry reportedly heard judgment in that sentence. William reportedly meant responsibility. The brothers, allegedly, were speaking the same language and hearing two entirely different conversations. Charles is said to have set his glass down the moment Harry repeated his demand for independence from palace oversight. The gesture was small. The meaning, according to those who witnessed it, was unmistakable. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse anyone of anything. He reportedly just ended the conversation there, and that quiet ending, sources suggest, became the actual turning point. Not long after that dinner, an estate advisor is said to have drafted the earliest version of the redirection clause. An estate advisor, broadly, is a financial and legal professional who helps manage family trusts, property, and inheritance structures. According to internal notes referenced by sources, the reasoning was recorded plainly. Future support could no longer function as leverage inside an already fractured family. Charles allegedly never confirmed this publicly. The silence simply sat there, unspoken but unmistakably present. Harry reportedly didn't learn about the final decision through a headline. He's said to have received it through a private call, one that, according to people close to him, left him gripping the edge of a table as though the ground had genuinely shifted beneath him. The message, allegedly, was short and unambiguous. The fund had been redirected. His father had chosen William's children, And for what may have been the first time, Harry reportedly understood this wasn't distance anymore, it was separation, formalized in writing. Meghan, according to sources, was nearby when the news arrived, and she reportedly understood the implications instantly. She allegedly refused to treat it as a simple financial adjustment, because inside a royal family, money is rarely just money. It signals trust, status, and whether someone remains inside the inner circle or has been quietly moved outside it. Meghan reportedly told Harry this wasn't a private matter at all. She allegedly called it a humiliation, waiting to become public, and according to insiders, Harry suspected she was right. Harry reportedly felt betrayed by his father in a way that even surprised him. Charles had disappointed him before, stayed silent before, but this, sources suggest, felt different, like a verdict on loyalty itself. Allegedly, Meghan pushed Harry to demand answers, names, reasoning, the identity of whoever had authorized the final signature, but Harry reportedly hesitated, and that hesitation, according to those close to the situation, revealed something deeper. He feared the answer might confirm that Charles hadn't been pressured or misled at all, that this had been a clear, deliberate choice. Harry allegedly requested a direct conversation with William, without aides present, for what's said to have been the first time in months. According to sources, William told Harry the decision was about protecting the next generation, not punishing him. He reportedly said George, Charlotte, and Louis represented a future that couldn't be left exposed to ongoing family tension. Harry reportedly heard protection. He also reportedly heard exclusion, both at once, layered into the same sentence. William, sources say, didn't raise his voice. Harry allegedly did. William reportedly stayed composed because he understood that every word could deepen the fracture rather than close it. When Harry pressed him on whether he'd requested the redirection himself, William allegedly answered with painful honesty. He'd accepted the responsibility, but the authority had come entirely from their father. That answer, according to insiders, didn't ease Harry's anger. It simply redirected where the anger pointed. As the estate advisor walked Charles through the clause's final language, the king is said to have studied the document like it reflected every choice he wished he could undo differently. The clause itself, according to those familiar with the structure, allowed the monarch discretion to act if long-term institutional stability required it. That stability, sources explain, refers to the survival of the royal line and the public confidence surrounding it. This was never simply about Harry losing financial support. It was, allegedly, about formally naming George, Charlotte, and Louis as the protected center of everything moving forward. Camilla reportedly watched Charles closely throughout, and what she noticed wasn't anger, according to insiders. It looked closer to exhaustion, the expression of someone who had spent years trying to keep a door open, only to conclude that the door itself had become the danger. Charles reportedly understood this would deepen Harry's sense of exile from the family. That understanding, sources say, sat on him heavily. He wasn't simply removing a name from a document. He was acknowledging, allegedly, that trust once broken inside a family can become genuinely unmanageable. The phrase written near the bottom of the page, according to one account, read simply, "Protect the line before the wound widens further." Charles reportedly repeated it under his breath, as if testing whether the words actually belonged to him. The line, sources suggest, meant William's children, the direct continuation of the institution. The wound meant Harry, Meghan, and the unresolved pain nobody in the family had managed to fully address. That sentence alone, according to insiders, turned the moment from policy into something closer to confession. Camilla reportedly stayed silent as Charles signed, and according to those present, what struck her wasn't triumph, it was resolve dressed in something closer to grief. Anger would have been simpler to understand. This allegedly was harder to argue with. The ink had barely dried when the first quiet consequence surfaced. Not in any statement, but reportedly on Camilla's face the moment the room emptied. She's said to have remained seated long after the advisors left, staring at the chair Charles had occupied minutes earlier. According to insiders, she understood something the official language never would. This wasn't only a financial decision. It was, allegedly, a father admitting that love alone hadn't been enough to hold the family together. Charles reportedly withdrew almost immediately afterward, skipped lunch, asked not to be disturbed, requested time before facing William again. His silence, according to sources, unsettled Camilla more than visible anger would have, because anger fades quickly, while regret tends to linger. One aide reportedly noticed the Sussex file being physically moved from the active estate records into a restricted archive. That detail alone, insiders suggest, sent an unmistakable signal through the household. The matter was no longer being treated as ongoing support. It had quietly become closed history. Catherine, according to sources, was warned the children would be shielded from the specifics, yet she reportedly thought immediately of George and how one day he might learn his name had been read aloud in that very room. She allegedly wanted her children protected, but not raised to view family loss as some kind of victory. When William finally entered the room to speak with his father alone, there were reportedly no advisors present, no Camilla, no prepared statements. Just two men confronting the cost of a decision that protected three children, while confirming the fracture with a fourth. Charles allegedly didn't want a formal briefing. He reportedly wanted his son to hear the truth directly, before the public could twist it into something simpler and easier to condemn. William, sources say, didn't sit like someone who'd won anything. He reportedly carried the decision heavily, aware that George, Charlotte, and Louis were now formally protected in a way the public would eventually notice. Charles allegedly told William the redirection was never meant as a reward. It was meant, he reportedly said, to shield the children from instability that could one day reach their schooling, their security, their entire public existence. The king is said to have admitted that the earlier dinner had changed something in him permanently, convinced him that financial support could become a weapon inside the family if it stayed tethered to unresolved resentment. William reportedly listened without interrupting, then said something that allegedly stayed with Charles afterward, that he never wanted his children's safety to come directly at his brother's expense. He reportedly promised his children would be raised on duty rather than triumph, protection rather than pride. By the next morning, sources indicate the story had already escaped the quiet confines of estate planning entirely. Newspaper headlines reportedly stretched across front pages, suggesting the Sussex Fund had been redirected toward William's children. Outside the palace gates, small crowds allegedly gathered, some defending Charles, others accusing him of cutting Harry out with calculated precision. William reportedly saw the coverage before any official palace response had been prepared, and according to insiders, he understood instantly that the story had moved beyond family planning and into public judgment. Charles reportedly listened to the first broadcast summary in total silence, as commentators described it as the clearest signal yet that the royal line was being secured around William's children specifically. Harry's supporters, according to reports, called the decision cruel. William's supporters called it overdue and necessary. The public predictably split into two camps, each convinced they were defending the more righteous position. Catherine reportedly switched off the coverage the moment Charlotte walked into the room, unwilling to let her daughter hear herself discussed as a symbol in an adult conflict. William's photograph, taken entering Windsor with a composed but unmistakably guarded expression, reportedly became the defining image of the entire story, controlled, but clearly not untouched. In the end, according to those close to the family, this was never purely about money. It was about belief. Charles allegedly believing the institution had to survive the wounds within his own family, William believing his children deserved protection without being raised on bitterness, and Harry reportedly believing he'd been pushed past the gate entirely. The monarchy, cold as that calculation may have seemed, made its choice: protect the future before the past could break it further. Charles is said to have carried the weight of that decision long after the documents were finalized, understanding it as one of those rare moments where private pain becomes permanent institutional policy. William reportedly accepted the responsibility with quiet resolve, aware that protection sometimes still feels like loss when it's built on someone else's fracture. Harry, allegedly, felt that loss in a way no statement could soften, not erased from the family, but no longer treated as central to its future planning. According to insiders, Charles understood the deeper truth better than anyone, that one dinner had ended the old hope, and one quiet signature had sealed the new reality in its place. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.